All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Joanna Wright. I am the program assistant here at Athens Clarke County Extension. Here tonight with me also is Laura Ney, our agriculture agent. Her name's the one on this slide with her contact info. So we're really looking forward to, I guess this is our third Green Thumb lecture of the year. They're kind of flying by on herb gardening. And just to kind of get started, this evening's is going to be a little different than normal. Normally we have our speaker here who teaches you live, but last minute our speaker was not able to do that, but we have a recording. And so we'll show the recording live from our speaker and have a question and answer that Laura and I will hopefully be able to answer your questions. But if we're not able to, we're happy to forward that along to our speaker and she'll get back with us. But Laura knows a lot about herb gardening, so I'm sure that that there'll be no problem answering y'all's questions. And in that same vein, if y'all have questions, we just ask for the sake of the presentation so we don't have to pause the video and whatnot, that you all stay muted. But if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat box and we'll try to answer them throughout. We're also going to have some time at the end with plenty of time to answer any questions. So if you want to save your question for the end, you can unmute and ask it there or put it in the chat, but feel free to ask as we go and we'll try to keep up with that. And with that, I will go ahead and have everybody test out the chat feature. I know a lot of you are probably used to Zoom by now, but for those of you that aren't, if you can pull up the chat and just tell us where you're watching this from. So, and then your favorite herb, if you have a favorite herb. So feel free to go ahead and put that in the chat and we'll just make sure everybody's good there. Oh yeah, we got a lot of people. Awesome. Well, Laura, if you don't think I missed anything, I will go ahead and start sharing the video so we can get going with that.
I think that's good.
Okay. I will mention, or go ahead, Laura.
No, you're good.
Okay. I will mention, in case I forget at the end, our next Green Thumb lecture is May 5th. And so it's kind of soon. Normally we have a bigger gap, but it's May 5th, Wednesday, 6 p.m., same time, also on Zoom. And it's on composting and it's taking place during International Compost Awareness Week. So if you want more information about that, sign up for our newsletter or follow us on Facebook or shoot Laura and I an email. We're happy to tell you about that week and the events going on. So I will go ahead. Thank you everybody for putting everything in the chat. Looks like we've got a lot of people who know how to use it. So, but feel free to let us know if you're having any issues with that. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this screen and switch over to the recording. And like I said, if y'all have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Laura, can you tell me if y'all see this?
We see it. It didn't have any sound coming out.
Okay, let me make sure. I know there's something that has to do with that.
Make sure you click those two little boxes when you decide to share.
What boxes?
Oh, when you share screen, when you click which screen, there's two little check boxes at the bottom of the share screen that say share video and audio or something.
That's what I didn't do. Okay, sorry everybody. All right, I'm going to start it and Laura, let me know if you don't hear it.
Laura.
It sounds good now.
Good evening, friends. Yeah. Laura at the Extension Office and other members of the community who have joined to learn more about herb gardening. My name is Rita Matthew. I got my Master Gardener Extension Certificate in 2020. And I have enjoyed every moment of it. I strongly recommend all of you to get the certificate and be part of spreading scientific knowledge to the community and developing awareness of what we as a community can do for our environment. The talk today is value your herb garden. And the reason for using the word value is I'm an accountant by profession, and I like to think in terms of assets and equity and liability. So when I look at any concept, I look at it from a point of view of an accountant, and what counts really is what accounting is. So herbs, what is their value to us as a community? I mean, we know that herbs are used in cuisines, and if you want haute cuisine or just any regular daily meal, herbs make a difference. But what else is there new about herbs? And that is what we will discover today. But I want you to remember 4 P's of herbs, because at the end of the talk, I will help you understand the 4 P's of herbs. So the first P is P for pizza, pies, and pasta, things that we know about. The second P is if you have an ache and pain, a pain, for example, most likely there's an herb that you can have to minimize the effects. The third is what we at the Extension program are really excited about, and that is pollination, bees. You need to ask Laura about the new beehives we've got in the Extension program. So herbs are pollinators. And finally, they're big pals because they can be used as companion crops. So the 4 P's of herbs are pizza, pasta, and pies, pains and aches, pollinators, and pals, the companion crops. So let's start. I will have a PowerPoint to make my concepts clearer, and I hope you can hear me well. There. Now this picture here is the herb garden at the National Library of Medicine. It was constructed to celebrate the bicentennial of the NIH, National Institute of Health. And so that's the garden that was developed in 1976. And the extension program, the Master Gardeners Association, there have maintained it and taken it over as one of their volunteer projects. So there we have, and I'll tell you more about these flowers as medicinal herbs. You can see the feverfew and cosmos and lavender, sage. So here is the content guide of what we're going to do today. We're going to study the history, and then the 4 P's, as I said, how to value your herb garden. And if you are still interested after you understand their assets value, then we will find out how to grow your assets, because that's where your equity comes in. The more effort you put in, the more you understand the herbs and how to grow them, the more you're going to benefit, and the community will benefit as well. So we have growing, how to grow them, how to propagate them, prune and harvest, and then finally the best practices. This is the history of herbs and spices. You can see the different herbs. I hope you can recognize some of them at least. the cumin, cinnamon, ginger, turmeric, these spices, and then the herbs, chives, bay leaves, anise. Okay, so the study of herbs is well documented. Evidence of early herb gardens dates to Europe in the Middle Ages. Egyptian schools of herbalists have existed since 3000 BC, and scholars now have been interested in herbs as medicines, cosmetics, for the value in cooking, and of course, the history of herbs and the folklore. Today, the business of herbs, producing fresh herbs for consumption, has become one of the fastest growing industries in agriculture. The United States produces about 200 billion pounds of herbs and spices per year. What is the difference between herbs and spices? Herbs are obtained from the leaves of herbaceous, non-woody plants. Herb is also used to describe any herbaceous plant that dies down at the end of the growing season and may not refer to its culinary value at all. Examples of herbs are thyme, sage, oregano, parsley, marjoram, basil, chives, rosemary, mint. And spices are obtained from roots, flowers, fruits, seeds, or bark. And examples of spices are ginger, turmeric, garlic, coriander, cinnamon, saffron. Those are just a very small selection. And you may have thought that a salt is a spice, but it's neither a herb nor a spice. It is a mineral. Here we see a herb garden in a home. And here we have an example of herbs growing in the sun and in partial shade. And we will discuss this in detail a little later. Let's go to the first value of herbs, and that is pizzas, pies, pasta, and everything else to do with food. So the culinary value. The most common value of herbs and spices is that they serve as flavorful alternatives to salt, fat, and sugar without adding any extra calories to meals. Instead of adding sugar to oatmeal, sweet potatoes, and desserts, spices like cinnamon and allspice may be added. For savory meals, use spices like black pepper, cumin, and dill seed. Herbs and spices may be used instead of breading, gravies, and sauces. Seasoning meats with herbs and spices and cooking them is a healthy alternative to breading and frying, an easy, flavorful way to reduce fat intake. Adopting small changes like these can help reduce sodium, fat, and sugar in your diet. Common culinary herbs are from plant families that include chives, Alyssiae, borage, boraginaceae, tarragon asteraceae, and sorrel polygonaceae. From the mint family, Lamiaceae includes basil, oregano, rosemary, thyme. Carrot family, Apiaceae, includes dill, parsley, chervil, and cilantro. Here I'd like to share with you a chart of how you can pair an herb with a dish that you like. Basil, for example, and these charts are, I'm going to make them available to those who attend, and please correspond with Joanna, who is in charge of coordinating this program. So write to Joanna and she will share the PowerPoint and all the charts and anything, any other information that you need. You're just welcome to write and we'll be happy to share it with you. So basil can be used in marinades, meat, salads, seafood dishes, very versatile. Bay leaf, you can add, it is pretty strong, I think, but comparatively it could be mild too, depending on if you use just a small amount of bay leaf, it could be a mild flavor. Add 2 or 3 leaves to gravies. Chive now is sharp onion garlic flavor, and you can use it in cream cheese and sauces, fish, lamb, vegetable dishes. Cilantro, now we're talking. I love cilantro, and cilantro you can make a chutney, you can use it as a salsa, guacamole, salads. You can sprinkle it on top of your rice or any other vegetable dish. Just a small touch of cilantro really makes all the other flavors pop. I'm biased, just a little bit. Dill is similar to cilantro in the sense both of them can serve as the seeds are spices and the herbaceous plants are herbs. So dill is used in dips and potato salads and vegetables. Now fennel is wonderful. It has a sweet, light flavor. You can use it in Italian sausage, spaghetti sauces. Next we come to oregano. Oregano, the leaves are used either fresh or dried, and you can use it in mushrooms and omelets. I am hungry already. And the next we come to parsley, and parsley is used omelets, potato dishes, soups, and vegetables. So here in this slide we have, first we had the herbs, and now we have spices being paired with dishes. So garlic, ginger, mace, mustard, nutmeg. You see in this picture, if in case you hadn't seen a nutmeg, I thought I'd show you a picture of a nutmeg. And there's a nutmeg in this picture here on the side. It's used in applesauce, and spices you would think are used for spicy food, but then spices can be used even in desserts. Nutmeg, for example, is used in applesauce and baked goods, but they can also be used in stews and vegetables. Similarly, turmeric. Turmeric you would think is used as a spice, and you find that there's a turmeric latte being served at Starbucks. So you can have a turmeric cookie, or and of course you can use it in one of the savory dishes. So I'm going to talk a lot more about the ginger, turmeric, and garlic in the next section. Saffron, by the way, grows in very small air parts of the world. It was, they're small little stamens and they're very expensive. Less than an ounce can cost about $10. So you can use it very sparingly, and yet the whole dish will be flavored with a beautiful fragrance. What else can you make with herbs? You can have herb teas, herb butter, herb oil, herb vinegar, herb salts, bouquets, bouquet fine, bouquet garni. And the most surprising thing for me was that you can make herb butter and store it in the refrigerator. And you can also have herb oils. I knew about herb vinegar, I knew about herb tea, but here I found, while I was preparing for this talk, I found so much new information. Herb butter, you have 1 tablespoon of fresh herbs, or 1.5 tablespoon of dried herbs, or half a teaspoon of seed for each 1/4 pound of the butter at room temperature. If combining 2 or more herbs, use less of the strongly flavored ones. Store herb butters in a container and refrigerate it. For herb oil, they can be used for salad dressing, marinades, or to saute. Any type of neutrally flavored cooking oil can be used, such as olive oil, peanut oil, grapeseed, or avocado. Use about 1 teaspoon dried herb for each cup of oil. In a saucepan, gently heat oil until it is warm. Add dried herbs, cook to about 180 degrees Fahrenheit. Let cool and strain out the ingredients before bottling. Herb oil scans oil, unlike vinegars. So store the herb oil in an airtight container in the refrigerator and use within 2 weeks. Herb suggestions for this recipe: rosemary, thyme, basil, tarragon, summer savory, oregano, cilantro, marjoram, chervil, chives, dill, mint, parsley, and bay leaf. I also have recipes for herb salts and herb vinegar and bouquet garni. So if you need any of the recipes, please contact me. And next we come to medicinal herbs. So in medicinal herbs, we see that we can use the flowers, ginger, turmeric, and garlic. And those are just a few topics that I'm going to talk about today. Flowers are used for migraines, joint pain, colic, eczema. Ginger has anti-inflammatory properties, so also turmeric, and garlic is a source of vitamin C, vitamin B6, manganese, antioxidants. So all the information I have in this talk has been taken from the National Library of Medicine website. Even though it's a reputed source, I would strongly recommend you to contact your physicians for any ailments and treatment plans. But this information is also very useful and important, the one that I'm going to share with you, because we are talking today about how our lives are interconnected. So it's not just about eating, but we are also studying how herbs can provide benefit as medicines, and how herbs fit in with the environment and with the community crops. So the whole ecosystem is being discussed. Medicinal flowers. Chamomile is said to take away weariness and pain and inflammation of the bones. The oil from the flowers can be used against many pains and aches, including joint cramps. Chamomile is also helpful in healing migraines and regulating menstrual periods. Cinquefoil is used to reduce inflammation. It can also treat sore mouths and ulcers. The juice is known to aid jaundice, as well as helping hoarseness of the throat and cough. Cinquefoil can be applied to painful joints. Columbine. Because columbine is slightly poisonous, its astringent properties are mainly exploited in lotions and used externally. Feverfew is what you see in this slide here, Chrysanthemum parthenium. Feverfew is known as an effective treatment for migraine, headaches, and fevers. It may also help ease diseases like arthritis. Lavender prevents fainting and allays nausea. In oil form, it is often used in therapeutic baths to reduce stress. It can also lower blood pressure. A small amount makes a useful application on skin diseases like eczema and psoriasis. You have rosemary has been used to treat headaches, epilepsy, and poor circulation. It can also be used as a disinfectant in the form of mouthwash and also to treat fever. It is also reported to stop dandruff and improve memory. Sage is helpful for hoarseness and cough. It is one of the best known remedies for laryngitis, tonsillitis, and sore throats. Yarrow is used topically for wounds, cuts, and abrasions. An infusion of yarrow is known to speed recovery from severe bruising and various allergic mucus problems, including hay fever. Next week, again, I want to reiterate to you that it is extremely important to contact your physician for any physical ailments you may have and for any treatment plan. So when you're using herbal medicine, it needs to be under the guidance of your physician. Ginger and turmeric are closely related. They are rhizomes. The ginger plant is grown for its aromatic, pungent, and spicy rhizomes, which are often referred to as ginger roots. The main active components in ginger are gingerols, which are responsible for its distinct fragrance and flavor. Gingerols are powerful anti-inflammatory compounds that can help alleviate the pain caused by arthritis. Studies have also shown that ginger helps boost the immune system, protect against colorectal cancer, and induce cell death in ovarian cancers. This information is not to be relied on as a sole treatment plan. Please consult a physician for your ailments and work under the guidance of your physician for any treatments. Ginger is a good source of copper, magnesium, manganese, potassium, and vitamin B6. Historically, it has been used to relieve symptoms of gastrointestinal distress. It is also safe for pregnant women who are experiencing nausea and vomiting. Site selection for ginger. Ginger thrives best in warm, humid climates. Choose a site that provides plenty of light, including 2 to 5 hours of direct sunlight. Ideal spots are also protected from strong winds. Soil preparation. I will be talking a little bit more about in detail about soil preparation, planting, water, light, but I wanted to touch on the ginger, turmeric, and garlic requirements separately because it's a rhizome and they have slightly different needs. Best soil for ginger is loose, loamy, and rich in organic matter. Loamy soils allow water to drain freely, which will help prevent the rhizomes from becoming waterlogged. Thick mulch can also provide nutrients, retain water, and help control weeds. Before planting, cut the ginger rhizome into 1 to 1.5 inch pieces and set them aside for a few days to allow the cut surface area to heal and form a callus. In early spring, plant parts of the rhizomes. Each piece should be plump with well-developed growth buds or eyes. A good source of ginger for planting is fresh rhizomes from another grower. If you are buying ginger from a store, soak with rhizomes in water overnight because they are sometimes treated with a growth retardant. Plant the rhizomes 6 to 8 inches apart, 2 to 4 inches deep, and with the growth buds pointing upward. They can be planted whole or in smaller pieces with a couple of growing buds each. Ginger plants will grow to about 2 to 3 feet tall. Fertilizing, if the soil is less than ideal, add a slow release organic fertilizer at planting. Afterward, liquid fertilizer may be applied every few weeks. These soil amendments are especially needed in regions of heavy rainfall where rain can leach essential nutrients from the soil. You can also add compost, which will supply nutrients as well as retain water in the soil. Ginger roots benefit from fertilizer containing high levels of phosphorus. Have the soil tested with Laura at the extension office. For a small fee, they will give you the recommendations about your soil. Have the soil tested and amend the soil after you receive the report. Harvesting. Ginger can be harvested by digging up the entire plant. Although it may be harvested at any stage of maturity, the best time is when the plant is 8 to 10 months old. After harvest, choose rhizomes for replanting and replant them promptly. Ginger is typically available in two forms. Young ginger is usually available only in Asian markets and does not need to be peeled. And the mature ginger is more readily available but has a tough skin that needs to be peeled. Store fresh ginger in the refrigerator or freezer. If left unpeeled, it can keep for up to 3 weeks in refrigeration or up to 6 months frozen. Now we come to the fun part. Herbs as pollinators. We love bees, and I hope you do too. Beyond us humans, growing herbs also provides health benefits to your local wildlife and ecosystem. Flowering herbs are favorites for pollinators. Bees go especially gaga for oregano, thyme, basil, and rosemary when it is in bloom. Dill, parsley, and fennel are host plants for swallowtail butterflies. Ladybugs, hoverflies, and other beneficial insects also seem quite fond of herbs. Not only do they attract pollinators, but culinary herbs are known to deter pest insects such as mosquitoes and aphids. Let me go back a bit. Okay, let me, I just wanted to go back and discuss a little more about the pollinators and give you examples of calendula, salvia, which attracts bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds. And then nasturtium, it attracts bumblebees, hummingbirds, and moths. But nasturtium, aphids also love them, so they make great trap crops. But to prevent infestation from getting out of control, you just squirt them all out with water. And lavender attracts bees and repels mosquitoes and flies. Bloom time, summer through fall, potentially year-round in mild climates. And growing requirement for lavender is full sun, though it may benefit from some afternoon shade in the hottest climates. Plant in well-draining soil and add half cactus mixed evenly. The last thing lavender likes is wet feet. Thus, one of the most common lavender care mistakes is overwatering. And no need to bother with fertilizer. It does well in poor to moderate soil. If you need a chart of all the flowers that are good for pollination, again, please do write and request. Now here we have pairing of companion crops. Basil pairs well with tomatoes, repelling white flies, mosquitoes, spiders, mites, etc., and improves pollination, tomato health, and flavor. Parsley also draws insects away from tomatoes. Plant these herbs between tomatoes. Borage pairs well with tomatoes, attracting pollinating bees and tiny pest-eating wasps. And it also pairs well with strawberries, enhancing their flavor and vigor. Sage is a useful herb that repels carrot flies. Plant it around a cabbage patch to reduce injury from cabbage moths. Mint deters aphids, ants, and flea beetles. Just be careful to plant mint nearby in its own pot or bed, as it is a very aggressive grower, and we'll come to that in a minute. With garlic, let's see. Okay. Garlic and garlic spray has a strong scent which deters aphids and onion flies, moths, Japanese beetles. By the way, with respect to garlic, we have a huge crop that has been planted at Planter Row, which where master gardeners volunteer their time to grow crops for seniors and low-income families. And we have a very detailed description of the amendments that are needed to plant garlic, and how it was. We just did a planting in the fall, and we'll be harvesting in the spring. So if you are interested in knowing more about it, one of the articles in the Shades of Green describes the garlic planting process that we went through. With garlic, every clove has to separate it. It's called popping, and because each clove is planted separately and it grows into a bud. So it's planted 6 inches apart, 2 to 3 inches deep. And then you have to fertilize it well so that it grows, allows the roots to grow and get the nutrients throughout the winter. Next, we come to poached egg plants and crimson clove nasturtiums we talked about just a minute ago. They attract, I forgot to mention, they attract hungry caterpillars away from brassicas like cabbage and broccoli, and also lure black flies away from fava beans. Sunflowers pair well with cucumbers and pole beans and provide support for climbing plants as well as shade for crops which in hotter climates can become sun-stressed. Okay, so now we are at the core of what a master gardener does, which is growing. And you may recognize, some of you may recognize this picture. It is at our extension garden, the herb garden at the extension office. It has tarragon, chives, sage, mint, basil, annuals and perennials. All of it is there. It's a beautiful example of how to grow healthy herbs. And this picture of me working in the herb garden was taken and is also part of a painting that we did for our recipe book. It's not just a recipe book, but it talks about health and environment and community. It's called There Is a Season. It's a fundraiser for the Athens Clark County Extension. In case you're interested in some of the recipes that I've shared today and talked about, you may consider donating, purchasing your own copy. So these are the 5 factors that we're going to talk about. All master gardeners have to have this core knowledge to grow healthy plants: soil, fertilizer, water, light, and then the seasonal aspect of it. Now we talk about soil. The majority of herbs need well-drained soil with a range of 6 to 7.5. When planting outdoors, avoid heavy clay soils and wet areas. Once you select a soil, cultivate the soil to a depth of 12 to 18 inches, then level it. If only a shallow layer of topsoil exists above hard subsoil, remove the topsoil temporarily, break up the subsoil, adding organic matter. After improving the subsoil, put it back. Even though the topsoil may be better than the subsoil, the topsoil may also need additional organic matter. Avoid soils that have nutrient content. These rich soils may hurt the herb by promoting rapid, lush growth that will contain only small amounts of the essential oils that give herbs their characteristic aromas and flavors. What if the soil has a drainage problem? as most of the local soil, which is clay and retains moisture, what do we do then? Well, we can build a raised bed. Raised beds improve drainage. Very few herbs will grow in wet soils, although a few such as mint and lemongrass do thrive in moist soil. To further improve drainage in clay soils, add 2 to 3 inches of fine pine bark, cracked pea gravel, or coarse compost, and work this in a depth of 8 to 12 inches. Incorporate 2 to 3 inches of fine pine bark, compost, or leaf mold to sandy soils to improve their moisture retention. The other alternative is to use containers. Containers used for growing herbs, whether indoors or outdoors, should all have holes in the bottom for proper drainage. When planting in containers, avoid garden soils like topsoil or black earth. Instead, use a potting mix or pro-mix. Next, we come to fertilizer. Fertilize sparingly. In most cases, garden beds can benefit from using a 5-10-5 commercial fertilizer at the rate of 3 ounces per every 10 feet of row. Apply once during the growing season, unless the site is particularly poor or the plants show signs of deficiency. Use a liquid fertilizer at half the label recommended strength once every 6 weeks for herbs in containers indoors and every 3 to 4 weeks for containers outdoors. Water thoroughly once a week by soaking the soil to a depth of 8 inches to ensure that the water zone is receiving enough moisture. Water indoor herbs when the soil feels dry, a ½ inch below the surface depending on pot size. Outdoor container grown herbs need water more often. Water daily if days are hot and sunny. Never allow the plants to wilt between watering. Constantly wet soil encourages root rots, especially during winter. Root rots are the most common problem of herbs grown indoors. Mulching materials such as straw, marsh hay, compost, and leaves provide good winter protection for hardy perennial herbs. Depending on the size of the plant, a mulch 2 to 5 inches thick will keep temperatures constant around the plant during late fall and early spring. This reduces winter damage to your plants. Mulching during hot, dry periods of the summer can help maintain soil moisture. Winterizing. Plant the herbs in unglazed clay pots filled with potting mix. In spring, sink the entire pot in your garden. The porous clay will allow water and nutrients to pass from the soil into the pot. As the days start to cool off in September, dig the pots up and clean them off. Inspect your herbs for insect infestation and treat them before bringing the plants inside. They can spread pests to any other outdoor plants you may have. Your herbs may drop a few leaves after you bring them in. They will not thrive during the darker days of winter, so do not fertilize them. Water them only as necessary. When the soil feels dry, do not use too much of the foliage in cooking, as the plants will be unable to recover from the harvest until they go back outside. In April, start taking your potted herbs outside on warm days and bringing them back in at night. Keep them out of direct sunlight at first. Sink them into the garden soil again in May. Many herbs have shallow roots that heave out during spring thawing and freezing of soil. A loose mulch spread over the roots about 4 inches deep can provide adequate protection. Evergreen boughs, straw, oak leaves are good materials for a mulch. Don't mulch until after the ground is frozen in early winter. Do not remove mulch until you see signs of new growth in the early spring. If the mulch compacts during the winter from heavy snows, fluff it up in early spring before growth begins. Light. Herbs may be grown in sun or partial shade. Most herbs require at least 6 hours of direct sunlight to grow well. All-day sun is even better. The more intense the light, the more oils. Oils create stronger fragrances and seasonings. A southern or western exposure will meet the needs of most herbs, although some may do well in a bright east-facing location. Indoors, it is crucial to give herbs the best light available with fluorescent lights are available, and you can use fluorescent lights, which are necessary to maintain healthy plants during winter. 12 hours of artificial light daily is enough for most indoor grown herbs. Not enough light will result in spindly, thin growth. So here's the good news. If you have partial shade in your yard, then there's still hope. The most important time to provide sun is during the herb's active growing season, spring through fall. Oregano, rosemary, thyme, lemon balm do well even with little to no direct sun during the winter time. However, that is when they are fairly dormant anyways. Examples of herbs in your shady kitchen herb garden: chives, parsley, lemon balm, mint, thyme, tarragon, oregano, cilantro, rosemary. Great news. Annual herbs. The herbs listed below are classically annual in nature. No matter the climate, they grow for one season and that's it. Their life comes to an end. Some herbs come and go more quickly than others, like cilantro seems to. Others you may be able to continually harvest from spring through fall, like basil. These are particularly perfect for container kitchen herb gardens. Basil, cilantro, dill, parsley, fennel, marjoram. Perennial herbs live for many years. Some will significantly die back in the winter, but should come back to life in spring. Depending on your climate, some perennial herbs will continue to provide through the winter. For example, our rosemary and purple sage are evergreen and beautiful year-round. Yet, even in our frost-free climate, the cold, hardy oregano and green sage go dormant, lose their leaves, and look like dead brown sticks for several months during the winter. That is normal and part of their self-protection to survive in colder climates. Here's a list of herbs along with the USDA hardiness zones that they will survive year after year. Every herb on the list below can also be grown as an annual in most climates, and that's great news. Now we come to propagation. You see, every investment, every asset needs to grow. And that's what we're talking about here, how to grow our herb garden. There are 3 ways that you can grow: from seeds, from cuttings, division, and layering. Herbs can be started from seeds. And here's the instructions for starting from seeds. You start seeds indoors under fluorescent light, provide light for 14 to 16 hours daily, and then place lights approximately 4 to 6 inches above the seedlings. Raise the lights as the seedlings grow to maintain the 4 to 6 inch distance, and then transplant them outdoors once frost danger has passed and the soil has warmed and is firm enough to work. Next, you can propagate through cuttings. Lavender, lemon balm, scented geranium, sage, rosemary can be propagated from cuttings. You can take cuttings of herbs at any time during late spring and summer from healthy, well-established plants. And cuttings taken in fall take longer to root. Healthy tip growth makes the best cuttings. Cuttings of vigorous soft shoots or old woody stems are less desirable. Division works well for tarragon, chives, and mint. Layering is suitable for many perennials with flexible branches. So it seems contradictory that we're trying to grow our assets and then we're giving advice on how to prune the herb plant. But it's a good practice to prune because when you prune, it encourages the plant to grow, strangely. Prune in V's. Take a shoot just after two smaller ones and the others will grow in larger. Start trimming when the plant grows to 3 to 4 inches above the soil, making sure there are still some good leaves left behind. This gives the plant a sturdy base to grow on. As the herb grows back, prune it every 3 to 4 inches of new growth, pruning back to with a couple of inches of the last cut. An added benefit to a good pruning, aside from increased yield, is a more compact and well-kept plant. Herbs that aren't pruned can grow tall and top-heavy, but a pruned herb is shorter and denser. Basil is a great plant to experiment with pruning, but most plants, like annual flowers, will benefit from a good pruning too. Not all herbs are alike, and some respond faster to pruning than others. Harvesting. Harvest culinary herbs throughout the growing season by snipping sprigs and leaves as needed. Mid-morning hours are the best time for harvesting. Just pick the amount that you need for the day, unless you are drying or freezing the herbs. Annual herbs such as basil and marjoram can become woody, less productive, and somewhat bitter if allowed to seed. It will shorten any annual herb's life. Then for carrot family herbs, cut each leaf stalk at the base of the plant. For these plants as well, flowering signals the end of the plant's life. The flavor of the foliage may not be as pleasant once the plant flowers. When cutting, it's important to use clean, sharp scissors or pruners and to avoid ripping or tearing the plants. Clean cuts help the plant to repair quickly and prevent the spread of disease. Cut leafy annual herbs back quite severely when harvesting them. Cut just above a leaf or pair of leaves, leaving approximately 4 to 6 inches of the stem for later growth. For preserving, bundle dried herbs are recommended for long-stemmed leafy herbs. Wash herb stems, shake off excess water using household string, tie stem ends together, forming small bundles. Label the bunches for easy identification after drying. Hang bundles upside down in warm, well-ventilated area out of direct sunlight. Sun will fade color and dissipate oils. When completely dry, unbundle and strip leaves from the stems. Store dried leaves in an airtight container. Rack-dried herbs are recommended for short-stemmed and very large herbs and flowers. One way to dry herbs are on racks. If you don't own a drying rack, an old window screen works great. Otherwise, you can make a drying rack. Spread herbs on drying racks. Elevate trays from ground with bricks, blocks, 1 inch by 2 inch boards, or set on a table. Select a warm area with good air circulation out of direct sunlight. Dry the herbs 7 to 10 days, turning them over periodically so the leaves dry completely. Store dried leaves in an airtight container. Microwave dried herbs. This is the least desirable method, so we won't go much into that. Freezing is recommended for any herbs. Wash herbs and dry entirely. Remove the leaves from stems and place in small plastic bag or freezer container. Label each package and freeze for best flavor use within 6 months. Air drying. With the right conditions, air drying is the best method. Slower, cooler drying preserves the flavors of herbs better than faster drying. Gather 4 or 5 stems and tie the ends together with clean string or heavy thread. Larger bunches of herbs will not dry properly because air cannot circulate between the stems as easily. Hang the herbs upside down in a dark, warm, well-ventilated room. Label them as they will look different once they dry. Mix-ups can easily occur. You can also air dry herbs using screen racks. Spread the herbs only 1 layer deep. A cookie sheet or solid surface will not work as well, as only one surface will dry properly. Storing. Once you dry the herbs, strip the leaves from the stems. Do not keep stems as they retain moisture long after the leaves have dried and may become moldy on storage. Store leaves whole if possible. A larger leaf piece will hold flavor better. Store the herbs in airtight containers. Herbs stored using these methods can usually last up to a year. Keep stored herbs away from bright light and heat sources. Check them periodically for any moisture buildup and within the container. If there are signs of moisture, empty out the container and re-dye the herbs. Best practices. That's a drip line you see there, and you see how the plants have been placed on either side of the drip line. Aphids attack anise, carrot, dill, and fennel. Grasshoppers and certain caterpillars attack herbs when conditions are right. So control is usually not necessary until you notice a problem. If control is warranted and pesticides are used, make certain they are labeled for food crops if the herbs are to be used for culinary purposes. Avoid topsoil or black earth and opt instead for a potting soil or pro mix. And this is very important to know the growing habits and plant in a pot versus in a bed. Example, mint and oregano are fast growers and can take over a garden. They're best suited in pots. Watering depends on whether it's grown indoors or outdoors. Pruning is essential for increased yield and a more compact and well-kept plant. Harvesting new growth allows older leaves to continue to function as solar panels that power plant growth. And we have seen the 4 P's of herbs. Pizza pasta pies, that is culinary. If you have pain or an ache, there probably is a herbs that can help you. So medicinal, they're pollinators, and then they're pals, crop companions. So design your herb garden accordingly, keeping this integrated look, view of life in mind. Here are some of the references. You will notice that all of the references are from extension sources. So reliable information, scientifically based, science-based information. And the photographs are all from pixabay.com, except for the one from the National Institute of Medicine, Library of Medicine, and the one from the Athens Clark County Extension Office. That was a personal photograph. So here's my beginner's attempt at a herb garden. You see some pollinator plants, bee balm, monardas, yarrow, and I hope to have many more herbs in there. So if you want to come visit or make any friendly suggestions, I welcome you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure sharing this talk with you and this information. I love the community in Athens, and I'm sure you will too. Love your Athens Clark County Extension Office and all the hard work they do. Let's give them a hand. Thank you very much.
All right. So hopefully everybody heard that well and enjoyed that presentation. Can I just get a confirmation that y'all can hear me? Maybe Laura, just let me know.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So before we move into questions, I see we've had a lot in the chat I haven't been able to look at that Laura's moderated. But before we get to questions, I just wanted to bring up our end of class evaluation. You can use the QR code right here. You just pull your phone camera up and put it over the QR code, and it gives you a little pop-up for a link. You could take that on your phone. Huh?
If you're trying to share the slide, it's still on Rita.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Stop sharing.
Oops. Sorry, guys. Okay, now can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. My apologies. You'd think I'd be used to Zoom by now, but I'm not. But like I said, there's the QR code. You can scan that with your phone, or I will send the link for the evaluation in the end of class email. We would really appreciate your feedback. We do look at all of them, and we make our decisions for the next year's classes and adjust based on what you guys want, because these lectures are for Athens, Clark County, and for the surrounding counties. I already mentioned the next lecture. We'd love to see y'all again, but I will not keep talking. I will let y'all start talking. If you want to unmute yourselves and ask questions, or if you want to put it in the chat, go right ahead.
Yeah, so at this point, y'all feel free to unmute your mics. The actual presenter is done, and so we're happy to hear from you guys in person. If you'd rather throw stuff in the chat, that's fine too. We can take a look. If you have any comments or specific questions about anything in the presentation, or maybe just questions about your own herb garden or things like that. So we have a question in the chat from Ginger about how can you repel deer outside of your fences? That is an everlasting question that we get for every presentation I think we do, maybe even including compost. That's a question. And we had one green thumb lecture that focused a little bit on both raised bed gardening and deer repellent or nuisance wildlife repellents. There is not a short answer to that. A lot of herbs, actually, deer will not bother as much as other plants. So the good thing about herb gardening is that there are very few plants in most of our gardens that deer really won't mess with, especially if they get hungry, but a lot of those are herbs. And so I might be able to, if Joanna doesn't mind me saying this, I might be able to throw together a list of some of the common herbs that deer really don't like to mess with. And we could send that out with our post-class email. And if they're not herbs or a plant that deer do like to eat or don't mind eating, there's not a lot you can do. The best thing to do is exclusion. So putting up, I know you said outside of a fence, but a lot of people will cite that deer can jump, 12 or 16 feet, or at least over an 8-foot fence if you want to keep them out. But I've heard from a lot of firsthand experience, including some professors, that if you have a fence around something, if something's in your yard, your backyard or front yard, and even if you have a pretty low fence, a lot of times that'll be enough just to deter them. They're pretty lazy. If there's a plant in your neighbor's yard that's not fenced in, they'll go there first. And so even some smaller fences really will go a long way. They won't be foolproof, but they'll deter them quite a bit. And there are some repellents, including things that smell like garlic, that work to a certain extent. There's Milorganite, which is a type of soil amendment that has been tested, I think even by Warnell, and it shows that there is some efficacy to keep deer away if you apply Milorganite around your plants. But none of that is foolproof with deer if they want to eat it. So I hope that helps a little bit. Let's see. We had a question about Rita's recipes. She is in and out of communication right now because she's visiting family. If we can get those from her, in the next 24 hours or so, we'll try to include those with the follow-up. I think she also invited folks to contact her if they, want anything specifically that wasn't included in the talk. So if we don't put it in the recipes in the follow-up email, we can, if she didn't share her email, we can get that to you so you can ask her for those recipes. I think, I know Joanna already mentioned it, but really, if you guys can take, I don't know, not even 5 minutes to fill out the evaluation, it's so helpful in these Green Thumb lectures. We use them constantly. The presenters really enjoy it. It's all anonymous, but they really like getting the feedback. We've had presenters that come back every year that will use that feedback and they'll tweak it and make their presentations even better for next year. So if y'all have anything to let us know about topics you want to see covered, or maybe compliments for the presenter, or even things that they maybe could have done that would have made it a better presentation next time, please take a moment to let us know. It's so helpful. We have a question about pine straw for mulch. Pine straw is a great mulch. It's even better because we're in Georgia and there's a lot of pine straw around. There are certain situations where certain mulches may be better than others, but generally speaking, pine straw is a good mulch because it stays in place really well. A lot of people like using pine straw on sloped areas instead of like the bark mulch. Both are good, but bark mulch tends to float really easily with water. And so on slopes, a lot of people go with pine straw instead of bark. Pine straw is also an organic matter mulch. So we like to recommend for most situations not using the synthetic stuff that you can get recycled, plastic type mulch, or even rocks, which are not bad in and of themselves, but they don't do a lot in our hot weather in the summers to reduce heat stress and radiation for the plant. So we like the bark and pine straw are great options. So Liz mentioned that she dries her herbs in the refrigerator and just lays them on a plate. That's great. That seems like it would work. Your refrigerator is a naturally dehydrating system. So if you've noticed, if you don't cover stuff up in the refrigerator, it tends to wilt or dry out. And yeah, so that might be a good option if you have the room in your fridge and it's something that's not super fleshy, especially that'll dry off well in there. That can be a good option. And Rita mentioned air drying being a really good option if you have the conditions in a covered area in maybe a cool covered area that's dry. The reason for that is the herbs, what we like about the herbs is that they have those compounds in them that we smell or taste or experience. And those compounds can volatilize. So even for if you're going to do like warm oven drying or using a dehydrator or something, you want to pay attention and make sure that you don't set those heats too high. And even then the air drying prevents any of that, or much less of that volatilization from happening, or prevents a lot more of it from happening, and less of it happens because of the low temperatures. So I would imagine that a refrigerator would be a great way to do it. Thanks for that. Yeah, Ace mentioned that Rita mentioned several, I think some charts or some different things that she had mentioned you could email her about. That's what I can do is ask Rita when she's back or when she's available, to maybe send out, that stuff that she has available. I'm trying to think if she may be able to just send it to all of y'all, or if anybody specifically is interested, you can email me at elnay@uga.edu. Aha, survey done. All right, you definitely get your post-class email then. If we were in person, we wouldn't give y'all your, we'd do door prizes or something and not give them to you till you filled out your evaluation. But we won't do that here.
I will mention well, I'll just say really quick. If you did not register for the class, but you got the link through a friend or something like that, just shoot me an email. My email's on this page, joanna.wright@uga.edu, and I'll make sure to get that post-class email to you. But right now, the list will just be those who registered. So I'd love to get it out to those who did not register. Just send me an email and I will get that to you.
Yeah, thanks for that. And also in the piggybacking on that, what I was going to ask Joanne is are we going to have the PowerPoint presentation available to send for this talk?
Yes, I sent it this morning and I will send it again tomorrow whenever I'm able to get the post-class email sent out.
Yeah, great. And Claire asked if we would repeat the presentation. So we will probably be able to put this up on our extension YouTube page. So a lot of times we're able to do that with our Green Thumb lectures now that we've been virtual and been able to record a lot of them, which has been kind of great. So that doesn't take too long, but we do have to go through the university and make sure it's captioned and all that to get it up there. But